Hey, happy Friday morning to you, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Musings, and welcome to installation or video number 6 as we continue to respond to Kenneth Gentry's book, Have We Missed the Second Coming? In our last video, we examined the fact that Mr. Gentry examines Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, where Daniel said, "Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall arise, some to everlasting life, some to everlasting condemnation." Okay. Well, Kenneth Gentry winds up saying and agreeing that Daniel chapter 12, verse 2 refers to the resurrection that occurred in AD 70. It sort of kind of makes you wonder, pardon me, how you can refute covenant eschatology, i.e., the belief that the resurrection occurred in AD 70, by going to a critical text and agreeing that it teaches the resurrection occurred in AD 70. You know, I'm not exactly sure how that responds and refutes covenant eschatology. Okay, the next passage in Mr. Gentry's attempt to respond to covenant eschatology is Acts 24, 14 and 15. Pardon me. Excuse me. Actually, verse 13, where Paul says, "And this I confess to you, that after the way that they," that is the Pharisees, "teach, so I worship the God of my fathers, believing all things that are written in the law and the prophets, that there is to be a resurrection of the just and of the unjust." Well, Dr. Gentry says, this passage is, quote, "significant to the debate between orthodoxy and heterodoxy regarding the resurrection." So what does Kenneth Gentry do? He takes note of the fact that preterists, true preterists, point out that Paul uses the Greek word Melo in the infinitive. And we point out that Melo with the infinitive often indicates eminence. As a matter of fact, the Blas de Brunner grammar of the Greek New Testament says Meline with the infinitive indicates eminence. Now, Dr. Gentry finds a lexicon that disagrees with that and basically heralds victory. But I want you to notice something. I just want you to notice something that's rather odd here. Kenneth Gentry himself, in one of his first volumes on the Beast of Revelation, on Revelation 1:19, where it says, "Write about the things that have been, the things that are, and the things that are to come," it uses Melo, and Kenneth Gentry said that means about to be. Do you know why Dr. Gentry has changed his tune in this book? It is because preterists pointed out his inconsistency. If you agree, and if you appeal, as he did, to the lexicons to show that Melo with the infinitive indicates eminence in Revelation 1:19, then guess what? Melo with the infinitive is used in Acts 24. It's used in Acts 17, 30 and 31 to speak of the judgment and the resurrection. Well, Kenneth Gentry was therefore entrapped by his own admission that Melo with the infinitive means eminence. Therefore, he retracted. And now he says, well, it doesn't mean that at all. Now, here's what's amazing. And I've got to hurry here. Dr. Gentry says Melo with the infinitive really only means certainty, and he gives two scriptural examples. And he says the phrase appearing in Acts 24:15 occurs only two other times in the New Testament, Acts 11:28 and Acts 27:10. It also appears in Josephus and Diogenetus. And now watch what he says. In Acts 27, Paul warned the captain of the ship that he was on being taken to Rome. Men, I perceive that the voyage will certainly That's what he says that Melo with the infinitive means. All it means is certainty with no time indication. So the voyage will certainly be with damage and great loss. Well, let me ask you a question. Did that mean when Paul said, I believe that this voyage will, Melo with the infinitive, be with great loss? And Gentry says, well, that just means it's certain. Okay. Does that mean that at some point of time, 2,000 years in the future, from that very voyage, that there would be damage, that there would be a shipwreck? When Paul said, I believe that this voyage will be with damage, was he not saying it's about to happen? He wasn't talking about 2,000 years in the future. In the second passage, Acts chapter 11, 28, Agabus, a prophet, stood up and said there is to be a famine throughout the whole world. Was Agabus talking about a famine in Ethiopia in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Or was he talking about what we know took place in the year 44 AD, a famine that was literally about to take place? You know, it's absolutely amazing to me that Dr. Gentry appeals to two passages that have the same construction as in Acts 24, and he says, oh, see, all that the word Melo means there is certainty. And yet in both of those texts, it is certainly about to take place. It was on the point of occurring. That does not negate imminence, it establishes it. Well, I'm running out of time, but let me point out something else here. 2 points very quickly. Paul is answering the charge. He is on trial for the resurrection. Who put him on trial? The Pharisees. The Pharisees believed in resurrection. Paul says, I agree, I admit that I teach what they do, that there's to be a resurrection of the dead. Oh, wait a minute. So if Paul believed exactly the same thing that the Pharisees believed in regard to resurrection, why do the Pharisees want him dead? Now watch this. Approximately 14 days earlier, when Paul is in front of the Sanhedrin, made up of Pharisees, Sadducees, and Paul says, brethren, I am a Pharisee of the Pharisees. For the hope of the promise of the resurrection do I stand before you this day. And the Pharisees immediately said, we don't find any fault with this guy. But 14 days later, those same people, that same group, want Paul dead for his teaching on the resurrection. Paul said, they teach resurrection, I teach resurrection. And they're going to say, yeah. And they're going, wait a minute, Paul, you're not teaching what we teach on the resurrection. If the Pharisees taught physical resurrection, and if Paul taught physical resurrection, why did the Pharisees want to kill Paul? You don't kill a man for preaching and teaching what you believe. No, what's going on here? Just like in Jesus' ministry, Jesus offered the kingdom. The Jews wanted the kingdom. Jesus did not offer the kind of kingdom the Jews wanted, so the Jews rejected him and killed him. Paul taught resurrection. The Pharisees taught resurrection. When the Pharisees understood the nature of the resurrection that Paul taught, they wanted him dead. That's because resurrection and kingdom are of the same nature. And the kingdom does not come with observation. Final point, very, very quickly. What Kenneth Gentry fails to say even one word about in his book is that, guess what? The resurrection of Acts 24, 14 and 15 would be the resurrection of the just and the unjust. And it was from Moses, the law, and the prophets. So where in Moses, the law, and the prophets do we find the prediction of the resurrection of the just and the unjust? Oh, we find it in Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, which is the only Old Testament prophecy that specifically teaches about the resurrection of the just and the unjust. Daniel chapter 2, a passage that Kenneth Gentry says was fulfilled in AD 70. So, Acts 24:14, the resurrection of the just and the unjust, is the resurrection of Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. The resurrection of Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, Kenneth Gentry agrees and admits and teaches, would be in AD 70. Therefore, the resurrection of Acts 24:14 and 15 would be and was in AD 70. Dr. Kenneth Gentry has refuted his own position on Acts 24:14 and 15. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this morning's morning musings. We'll have more to say about Dr. Gentry's supposed refutation of covenant eschatology in the upcoming weeks. Oh, by the way, next time around on a Friday issue, I'm going to be addressing what's coming up September 23rd, 2017. Is it the end? Is it the fulfillment of Revelation 12? Is the rapture near? No. Nothing prophetic is going to happen September 23rd, 2017. So stay tuned. We will see you on that flip side.